This weekend, demonstrators are taking to the streets and raising their voices, all against police brutality.
Yo, what's up, City of Truth? Pastor AD3 here. And I just wanted to come on and greet you guys. You know, we've been in this series entitled Public Enemy, and it has been one for the ages, man. I believe that God has really used it to really enlighten people, to really just kind of bring into perspective what it is God is saying, even in the midst of these perilous times. And so I appreciate you guys tuning in once again via our virtual experience. Please don't fret. The Lord's going to open a door for us to meet in person soon. But until then, we will be right here on this live platform. There are two other faces with me that you may know and you may not know, but I've been knowing each of these brothers for a pretty long time. I think since the beginning. Yeah, it's been a long time that I've been knowing these cats. And so I'm going to introduce to some, present to others, Pastor Wendell, Deacon Cole. Now, there is something I want to say. If you have my first album, Bag 'em, there's a line in Bag 'em.
I got a shout out.
There's a line in Bag 'em that shouts him out. His nickname, or what we call him, is Deacon. And so in the song, it says, call me Deacon, Mr. Wendell. You get that if you knew him. So that's Wendell right there. We call him Deacon, and I gave him a shout out in the line. And the other brother you see with the headband on, looking like he's straight from the motherland, is Royce Sauce Handy. We just call him Sauce. Been knowing Sauce for a while, good brother. And I really appreciate these brothers' insight. I appreciate their perspective, and I wanted them to come and talk to you concerning the things that are happening in our nation. And so I'm going to allow these cats to introduce themselves. So, Deke, we're going to go with you first. I want you to tell us who you are and what you want our church to know about you.
Yeah, man. So first, appreciate you inviting us on, man. It's always a blessing. Seeing you grow as a pastor, man, has been just one of the joys of my life, judging from, your mom and dad and the tragedy that happened there. And the Lord just blessed you, come and take on, and anointed G. Like it's been a pleasure to watch as a fellow under shepherd, man, take it. So want to appreciate that, man. Pastor Wendell Cole. Everyone calls me Deacon though, which really gets people confused, which is hilarious to me. Is he pastor? Is it Deacon? The Deacon is a nickname, exclusively a nickname, but you could just call me Deacon. It's all good. People are like, yo, you a pastor, a deacon? Y'all got a deacon pastor in the church? It's hilarious. So I just kind of roll with it and keep confusing people. But yeah, been pastoring for 8-9 years now, something like that, at Colonialism Bible Church, his home church, right off of Gregory in Richmond. So been married 13 years, got 3 kids. Yeah, man, it's been a journey, man. But as far as a message for the church, man, Jesus is dope. Like he's everything. Like, I mean, the more that I peruse his word, the more that I dive into it, the more he walks with me through this journey, man. The more I get to know him, man, the deeper I fall in love with him. And that's just it. You can have the deep theological truths, but it just boils down to Jesus is dope, man. He's just dope. So yeah, man.
I appreciate it. Sauce, tell us about you. Tell us, man, you got a lot of stuff going on. It's like every other day you doing something, like, and it's fire. Like, you still putting out albums. Everybody else done fell off. I done fell off. You still putting out heat. Like, talk to us. What's up, man? What's going on with you?
So I'm Royce Sauce Handy. They call me Sauce. I go by Sauce around the city. Rapper. I'm an artist educator. I teach hip hop. hip hop songwriting to be specific, and do a whole lot of other things. Sometimes I hate being called an activist, but I've done a lot of things actively with different groups that are actively working towards justice, etc. Um, and Yeah, man, lot of other things down the line. But I'm just excited to be on with y'all. Seeing Deacon, seeing AD3, of course. I'm still dropping music, and all of those things like he mentioned before. And still just trying to be active in kind of my convictions of literally fighting for Black people.
Yeah.
And with that, fighting for humanity, on that front, representing all of that. I wholeheartedly believe that, you know, what you do for the least of us is, you know, is what's mattering. And I think that, historically in America, Black people have been, um, in 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 that category, I would say. So I'm just here, man, to kind of share what I know and learn, and
Amen.
just be here. So
Hey, like I said, I really appreciate you, brothers, man. There aren't two people that I could think of that I would want on here. Just just kind of watching y'all's journeys, and we were talking before we started to come on about sauces. Like I called it a transformation. It was
Hmm.
like something shifted in you and kind of pushed you toward that direction. I'm not saying you never were an advocate for Black people, but I'm just saying like I
yeah, yeah,
see you like grind like never before in that direction. And Deacon, your story is super unique, especially when it comes to the church that you pastor. And
Yeah.
I want to get into that too, because
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah. For
even in
sure.
the midst of all this, like I want to hear how's it going with you. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you're pastoring a church that's multi-ethnic, correct,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Multi-ethnic.
multi-generational.
Yeah. Multi-generational. I'm the youngest pastor at 35. I think the oldest pastor is 82, 83. And
Wow,
that's my homie. And we got everybody in between, man. So yeah.
that's what's up. And so we're gonna go ahead and get started, and rightfully so. We're gonna start at the situation with George Floyd in Minnesota. We're gonna start there. There are other people, other things that have happened, but the George Floyd situation is kind of the situation that was like the, for lack of better phrase, it's the straw that broke the camel's back. You feel me?
Yeah. Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
been seeing this throughout our entire lives. Even back in the day, I remember as a kid with Rodney King. I remember seeing that as a child and really not knowing the impact of it, but actually watching it on TV and all that stuff. But I want you to talk about. I'm gonna start with you, Pastor Cole. Talk about what it was like for you when you heard about, or even if you watched,
Yeah.
the death of George Floyd. Like, what was it like for you? What was going through your mind? What was the sentiment? What was your attitude? Like, what were you thinking? Like,
Yeah.
what was happening within you when you?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was, I'd heard about it, then went and watched the videos and all the different camera angles and stuff like that. So I was in law enforcement for a couple years. And so I wanted to see, because there's a lot of sensationalism out there and whatnot, just get people hyped up. I don't really trust a lot of media stuff. So I wanted to see, like, okay, let's see if this is legit or not. What happened? And so I'm watching this take place. I'm watching the officer kneel on his neck, and watching the life go out of him, and straight up. And so as I'm watching and I'm seeing the situation, um, I'm looking at it from a law enforcement perspective. It was excessive. Is the easiest word to say, but it was, I mean, it was murder. It's flat out murder. And if I'm candid, with you guys, my I felt anger, and I felt pain, and I felt helplessness, and it was much more selfish. If I'm being honest, it was that with my three kids, right? I'm gonna raise them to be godly kids to the best of my ability, and I'm gonna raise them to respect. Yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am. I'm gonna do that to the best of my ability, and in spite of my greatest attempts, in spite of me gathering the collective wisdom of brothers like yourself or whoever else,
Yeah.
I still would not be able to, as a father, keep them from the same fate simply because their skin color was the wrong color.
Right.
And that, as a parent, like that's how I took it. That, as a parent, man, made me want to rage. If I guess is the best word that I could find. And it made me want to rage out on everything around me, to where when hope is lost, what do you do? And I felt in that moment, outside of my faith in Christ, like my children and my ability to protect them
Right.
was hopeless in this nation.
Right.
And that, man, I haven't been to that spot um, often. And so that's initially how I felt. Still feel a lot of the same way today. And so you wrestle through it. Then you see from that, then you see the explosion. You see the pain of everybody else around you. You kind of, get off yourself and begin to interact with their pain, with their misunderstanding, with their confusion, whatever it is. Why would they do that? And so, yeah, so that was my initial, and I would still say somewhat the same sentiment and feeling that I have now, is that rage. By the grace of God, it's kind of tempered down and become more focused. Um, but for sure, that's mentally and emotionally where I am regarding Floyd and everything that happened with him.
Yeah, that that's good. That kind of models my sentiments as well. Like, but at first I was kind of like, I don't know if this makes sense. I didn't want to be angry.
Mm,
Like it was like I'm drained of being angry about this kind
yeah,
of stuff. So it's a
yeah,
part of me was like trying to like, for lack of better words, like trying to like ignore it, not dismiss it, but
I
like trying
understand.
not to,
Suppress it.
yeah, suppress it. That's exactly it. But I just couldn't. It was just like, man, I have 3 boys. And so saw it's the same question. Like when you saw that, like, what was you thinking, bro? Like honestly, like what's going through your mind? Like what's taking place?
So when these things happen lately, man, I just don't even watch it because it's like too much for me to see it, and I don't want to see it, and I kind of go afterwards with what's going on after, read a couple articles about it, and I've seen the photos, and it's hard not to see it 'cause people are posting it all the
Yeah,
time or
Yeah,
whatever. But when I first heard about it, just the graphic details about what happened was just like, knee on the neck for 8 minutes, etc. Um, it's just it's painful. It's hurtful. And I know me and my struggles. I can tend to get um very radical, I would say. And when
yeah,
when when these type of things happen, man, and I have to remember that it's bigger than just me and what I think or feel about it. And even though I share those same feelings and thoughts with other people of all backgrounds, it was just like, man, like again, seriously, like
yeah.
for real, again, after the Ferguson uprising, I mean, it was just, and I'll talk about that later because that's kind of, with that transformation we're talking about. But after the Ferguson uprising and things kind of quieted down a bit, it was still stuff going on, but the way that this kind of blew up, it was just like it was like, man, I can't believe we're going through all of this again. Like we haven't progressed any with the efforts from Ferguson. Now we have done some things, but on the other end, on their end,
Yeah.
there hasn't been any collective progress in the way that American policing is executed. So a couple weeks after, I immediately was like, I gotta, I gotta get back in the game. Gotta do something. I'm an old man. The young cats, the young cats is in the streets, man, and thank God for them. But like after the initial emotions, man, and I still haven't seen the video. I just don't want to see it. But like
Right.
after the initial emotions and learning about what's going on and everything, I immediately went to, okay, what's some actionable items that I could take in my capacity and try to do something. So
Right. So it's safe to say that anger is kind of the common thread between us three in hearing about it or witnessing and seeing it. Like just kind of just being angry about it, right?
Absolutely.
right, right,
Yeah.
right.
And so as a pastor, man, I immediately when that happened, I started getting texts, I started getting phone calls. And one of the texts that I got was from a young lady who's a beautiful young lady, sweet spirited. The grace of God is on her life, transformed her life. She loves Jesus to the utmost. But one of the things she said to me, she said, Pastor, she said, I'm angry. She said, I'm angry like I've never been angry before.
Yeah.
And she said, why does God keep letting this happen?
Mm.
She says, I'm finding myself doubting the love of God because
Sure.
this has constantly been happening. And so there are a lot of people, namely Black Christians, who love Jesus, y'all, who love the Church of Jesus Christ, who
Yeah.
know the Lord saved them, but are angry. And I don't think we really know, we really know what to do with our anger. And so I'm gonna start with you, Wendell. As the church, like, what do we do with it? What are our options? What can we do to be
Yeah.
agents of change and still be biblical, right? Because that's
Right.
important. What are our
Right.
options? What are our responsibilities as a church? Because a lot of people are pissed off, man. Like, and
Yeah.
how do you balance being pissed with still being loving? How do you balance being
Yeah.
angry with still being a Christ follower and a disciple?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
help us out with that? Somebody's watching right now who needs to hear it.
Yeah. 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 It's tough, man. Anger, man, it is such a intoxicating thing. But a lot of times when I do counseling, we'll talk about anger as a secondary emotion. And
Mm,
it comes from a deeper root, whether it's embarrassment or shame or feeling of inadequacy. And so anger is the response, is the defense mechanism that comes out of whatever that deeper emotion is. And the reality is you feel betrayed in many cases by someone that should have protected you and now didn't, someone that should have valued you and didn't. And I think so one of the first steps is getting down to the root of, okay, why are you angry? It's cool to be angry, but why? For me, it was a sense of inadequacy. I can't protect my kids.
mm,
Therefore, it makes me angry. This man, his life should have been valued and it wasn't. And so I feel ashamed to even be a part of a country that allows something like that and promotes something like that. And had there not been any video, it would have just kept it moving. Like it would have just been another brother dead, and we would have
that's
kept it
the
moving,
crazy part.
and it would have been a Monday or a Tuesday or whatever day after, and we'd have just kept because it's happened before. And so, as far as what to do with the anger, I think first I enjoy. It was a quote from C.S. Lewis, and he said that usually. Um, Problems come in pairs. There's two errors. There's the error that you're running away from that you disagree with, and then there's the error that you run to try to deal with the first error. So I'm going to hate the police brutality. I'm going to hate the injustice of those things. And then because of that, I'm going to then resort to the other extreme of whatever that is, and that's going to be anger, rage, and I'm going to take that out. And so you
Wow,
run to the alternate error. And so
wow.
you have to be very, very careful of that. I think as believers, we have to be keenly aware and not to be cliche, but there is a spiritual battle that has taken place, even with your heart and mind. And
Absolutely.
so there is a healthy tension that's there to where I can hate this, but also not embrace the hate on the other side of it. And
Mm,
so I can love this, but it's gonna come with pain. It's gonna come with vulnerability. And so I think we first have to center ourselves on, why do you really hate it? Is it hate because it has directly impacted you? Which I think there is something sincere there to hate, but even more so than that, I would say I hate it because it's teaching and it's showing something. I think Salsa said it earlier about humanity, that somehow this person with this skin tone does not deserve dignity, and that isn't a direct affront to creation, to our creator, to what he has done, to who Jesus has died for. And because of that, because it presents a distorted reality, I absolutely hate it, and so does God. And so I
yeah.
have to center myself there, because if not, I'll find myself hating people
Mm,
rather than just hating the situations that we're in. And I'll find myself embracing a whole different poison that now is going to kill me in a much slower and demonic way than even police brutality will. And so you have to be very careful of those things. So I think first and foremost, centering yourself on who you are in Christ, and what that passion is stemming from,
right.
because the enemy is very subtle.
Yes.
and very slick, and he's going to get you to place it on something and
Yep.
going to justify things. I'm just like, hold on now, I hate it too, but we can't go there. And so how do we embrace that hatred? Because God hates, right? Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated. God hates. He has no problem with hating. God is love, but he also hates that which is contrary to him, but he hates it in a holy and a righteous way, not something that is rage or flying off the handle, whatever it may be. So how do we center ourselves and solidify ourselves in the gospel of Christ and say, okay, I hate this because it is teaching something radically different than what kingdom ethic is, radically different than what the gospel says about George Floyd, that he was worthy of dignity. He was worthy of a right to trial. If he had committed some offense, he was worthy of being treated as anybody else would be worthy of, and he wasn't. And because of that, Officer Siobhan, you have taught something different about George Floyd than what God says about him, and now you're a problem, and that needs to be fixed and needs to be dealt with in a just, in a gracious, but in a very just and purposeful way. So yeah, you have to center yourself first before you can start moving. 'Cause you just start swinging in an angry rage, you're
Right.
gonna do a lot of damage, but you don't know if you're really gonna,
Right.
have the effect you want.
So that's the church.
Yeah.
That's the church's response. The church's response is recognizing that that act is teaching something contrary to what God's teaching. It's teaching
Absolutely.
something contrary to the gospel, and our response needs to be teaching what God is teaching. But the pressure is to
Yeah.
look at the surroundings and the anger around you
Yeah.
and the anger within you, and want to take control.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. God, I got it from here because just like the young lady, sent you the message. God ain't protecting us. I'm going to protect myself.
right.
And it's like, hold up. That's the lie. God, you're not giving me the knowledge. Therefore, let me take it off the tree for myself.
Mm,
God, you're keeping me away from godhood. So the enemy came in and said, well, you can get it for yourself, right? All you got to do is eat of this tree. Be very careful about those deceptions. And so
right.
there is a way to have that anger, and that anger is righteous, and that anger is good. That hatred is holy. It is perfectly okay. And then to focus that through a gospel lens. And Sauce has been doing a tremendous job of that, saying, I'm going to focus this through these actions, and I'm about to get to work because I'm tired of this false lesson that's being taught out here. I need to teach something different about the dignity of humanity, particularly Black people. So let me be about that work. And that's exactly what we need to be doing.
That's good. Sauce.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That was a great explanation, and I was waiting for him to say that righteous indignation,
Yeah.
and it's I used to struggle with anger. Like I used to punch holes in the walls when I first got married. I never beat my wife or nothing like that, but I used to like destroy stuff. And this is from childhood trauma, from
Yeah.
being fresh out of the streets. Just that's all I knew, right? And until I learned how to focus those things, how to talk to her, how to plan, how to channel those things into different avenues, that's when I was able to control it. And now I'm much better with my anger. But and that's why I like, it's certain things that I can't, like I can't watch that like live as
Yeah.
soon as it happens. Like I have to be like, okay, I got to approach it slow because I've reacted in the wrong way in the past, and I want to make sure that I'm not reacting that type of way. But it's something that Dr. Cornel West said. I was watching him and Anderson Cooper the other day, and he was just talking about being at the funeral of George Floyd, and it was just so profound to me. And like I know it, especially with the Black radical tradition. Like I know it, but like hearing him explain it so much deeply, and basically to paraphrase, he was talking about how like what he saw at the funeral was um like decades and centuries of Black people being the I hate to say victims, but being the victims of Jim Crow, of mass incarceration, of the
Targets.
transatlantic slave trade, etc., and still being able to focus enough to love and not only fight for themselves, but
Crazy.
to
Yeah.
fight for others that are
Yo.
going
Yeah.
through these things.
You talk about
And
strength, boy.
yeah. So like I always rest in that, and like it's gotta be some type of love to come out of there, out of that, or your anger will, like you said, it would be misplaced. It would be rage. You would destroy stuff, and you look back like, man, I wish I wouldn't even did that. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
you know, that's what I would say. Definitely, just try to respond in a way that's going to lead to love, to helping something, to changing something, because those initial reactions, man, they could be,
Yeah.
as harmful, and kind of undo the work that people before us have already done.
Yep.
Mm.
When I talk about the Black radical tradition, including the Black church, and what the SCLC did, and Martin Luther King and the people that followed him or whatever, like these historical things that they've done to always show, even on the opposite end of justice, we're always coming and fighting for justice, and that love that we have spreads to all. I mean, the Civil Rights Bill has affected way more people than Black people, but they were fighting for something greater, and they was fighting for, having that dignity of humanity recognized in the law. So that's something I think about, man, when that anger comes up, and how to respond to it.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think, man, you gotta. I think many people interpret love as passivity.
Mm.
Like,
No, no, no,
no. I
no,
mean,
no, no,
no, and
no.
I know what you're saying, and that's not,
Yeah,
please don't,
yeah.
whoever's watching this, that is not what we're saying. I'm talking about love as a resolve. Like when I saw that, when I saw the video, I was resolved in my mind, like, I will no longer just live in your world. We live in our world, and you're gonna have to deal with me. You're
Mm.
gonna have to hear my voice. You're gonna have to hear my thoughts.
That's good.
I ain't code switching.
That's good.
Listen, you're gonna have to deal with my culture, and it's gonna be what it's gonna
You
be.
have
And
to deal with my
I'm gonna
do
do it in grace and in compassion, but I'm gonna talk about what I want to talk about when I'm at a restaurant, even though I
rag.
can't be at a restaurant right now. I'm gonna say those things, and if it offends you, then let's dialogue about it. I always have something I could learn, but you are going to live in my world too, and
Absolutely.
I'm gonna do that with grace and with humility and compassion. But that love stems from a hatred for unrighteousness that manifests itself in a resolution that, no, now my face, like Jesus, his face was set toward Jerusalem. Like, my face is set against this, and there's no, I mean, you lay down your life for it. Like, this has to be dealt with. So yeah, it's not passivity. It's a resolution for sure.
Absolutely, man. This is amazing. I was doing some reading the other day because a lot this stuff is just happening, and you want to be equipped to be able to help people as best you can, especially as a pastor. Like, my heart is to help people, like to
Amen.
shepherd people. And so I want to make sure that I, am educated enough to know. And I was doing some reading. I ran across this article, and I read a phrase called societal stewardship.
Hmm.
And here's what it
Mm.
refers to us not dismissing the evils of society as only a sin issue, without also paying attention to and dismantling the structures and systems that are built in society to serve the sin in our hearts. And so basically, this person was coming against this idea that, yes, sin is the ultimate issue. We know
Sure.
that. Like, sin is the problem. You feel me? Like, since the fall, like,
Right.
sin
Right. Right.
did it, right? But sinful people build sinful things and systems
Yeah.
to continue their sinful patterns, right?
Yeah.
And it's an act of justice to dismantle those systems. And it's
Yeah.
also a fruit of a heart of repentance. And so let's talk about that for a second. Like, I always, like, a couple pastor friends that I know, their go-to phrase is, "This is not a skin issue, it's a sin issue."
Yeah.
And it sounds good, and it sounds
Yeah. It rhymes. How could it be wrong?
right, and it rhymes. But here's the thing: like,
It's cute.
I'm tired of hearing just preach the gospel.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You feel me? Like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
preach the gospel.
Yeah.
We know that the gospel will change the hearts of men, but those men with the changed hearts
Yeah.
got to change some stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that.
Yeah. 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 It's yeah, I completely agree, man. From the history of humanity, from the dawn of the ages, man has sought power, and therefore has created systems that once that power is obtained, that allows for him to keep that power,
Right.
whatever, or
Right.
keep that partiality, keep him on the bright side of things, whatever it is. And it makes sense, right? That's what I mean, we if in a capitalistic society, right? If I have a banging company, I'm going to try to lobby and create structures and systems in place that keeps me ahead of my competitors. And so we seek power, then we seek to retain that power at all costs. So I mean, it makes logical sense. And you cannot destroy one without also dealing with the other, and you absolutely have to deal with them. And so um yes, it is a sin issue, not a skin issue, but your sin issue in this particular case is manifesting itself through skin issue. And so you have to deal with that. And okay, yeah, I mean, it's like Saul said, it's cute, I mean, it rhymes like whatever, but really what you're saying, let's get down to it. What you're really saying is, please don't talk about anything that makes me uncomfortable. Can you please only talk about social issues with which I'm comfortable with? In every other situation, no, you're going into a social gospel, and I didn't heard all this other, uh, junk that people toss out there. Like, no, we have to deal with the systems as well, because they are allowing for you to maintain a sense of power, or even if you aren't taking advantage of those systems, they're allowing for other people to be oppressed in a particular way. In which case, why would you not be on board with dismantling them? The only reason why you take offense to those systems being dismantled is because you know in the back of your mind that somehow that's going to disadvantage you. And I remember I listened to a panel discussion by with Ta-Nehisi Coates, and I love a lot of his literature. He's a professing atheist, to be completely candid. However, I remember a panelist asked him, like, what do white people need to do to break down white privilege? And he just started laughing. He was like, man, they ain't never gonna do it. And the panelist was like, well, what is it? He was like, in a nutshell, he said they're going to have to work against their own self-interest. So you're going to have an individual, that a white individual is going to have to look at their white son or daughter and say, I am going to try to dismantle a system that's going to benefit you. He's like, who is going to do that? Well, it's in that moment that I realized the church is the one that can do that. The
Wow.
reason being is because we understand that our rewards don't lie on this earth, but they rest in heaven.
Come on.
We follow a savior that literally worked against his own self-interest
Interest.
in getting on a cross and dying for us. Therefore, we are the answer. We are the people that can, quote unquote, work against our own self-interest in a worldly sense, because we understand heavenly rewards, and a heavenly calling is so much better, is a divine high calling. And so I'm just like, yo, and on top of
Yeah.
that, we've been uniquely empowered to do so through the power of the Spirit. And so I'm just like, we should be the ones about dismantling those systems that privilege certain people, because we know actually in doing so and working for God's righteousness, we actually are working for our advantage, because it's in the advantages of Jesus Christ and making his kingdom and his glory known. And so it works for us to do those things. And so, yeah, it's a sin issue, not a skin issue. But man, miss me with the cliche stuff. Let's be about the work and taking some of these things down.
Right.
Yeah, I think and that's why I think a lot of people and a lot of other religious groups, especially religious groups that deal with identity, like Black Hebrew Israelites or Moors, etc. I think they go so hard against Christians, based on like examples that he talked about before, that Deacon just talked about, is because if anybody can do it, it should be you guys who have been changed by
Yeah.
God, who say that you have the Holy Spirit living in you.
Good
These are
point.
the arguments that I understand. Like, oh, that's what they're thinking.
Yeah.
So like what you're saying, like if it's anybody, it should be
Should
us.
be us.
You know what I'm saying? And you
Yeah, man.
you and specifically like white pastors with like, you have the power that you have being built up in a white system. Like,
Yeah.
you have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you have to.
Yep.
There has to be something that you got to add to your plate. Like,
Yep.
you have to do it for the sake of your other brothers. And that's something I definitely agree with. And one other thing I've learned is that privilege and racism is just as an equal burden as not having those things, or being the person that racism
Mm,
affects.
mm.
It's a different level, but like
That's dope.
Amy Amy Césaire, who was a mentor to Frantz Fanon, he said he wrote a thing called the Discourse on Colonialism, and he talked about how the colonizer is ensnared in his quest to colonize people while he's trying to ensnare people.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like it's hurting them as much as it's hurting us, and we have
Yeah.
to realize that, and that's why it has
That's
to be
dope.
dismantled, because it's not good for anybody,
Yeah.
and it doesn't
Yeah.
represent God at all. So
Yeah.
like those are the
That's
things like
good, man.
that I've definitely learned, and looking at it from both sides. I was, for a minute, man, I was, straight Black Panther. Well, I won't say Black Panther because they get painted in the wrong light a lot, but like
They do. They do. Yeah.
I was
I was
straight.
I was watching a doc the other night about Huey Newton and the Black Panther.
Yeah.
They do get painted in a negative light.
What's that book, Sauce? Empire. Gosh, you the one that put me on it. But it's
Black
talking about
Empire.
it's talking about the history and the politics of the Black Panther Party. Anyway, give me a whole different perspective. Not that I completely agree or whatever, but I was like, you know what? In that situation, in that setting, man, I could see how they went that route. And so, but again, I love what Saul said. That reminds me of Frederick Douglass, man. He said something very similar, going through slavery and having escaped slavery and been a part of abolitionist movement and all of that. He talked about how, when he was, I believe he was in Baltimore, he was sold as a young boy to a white family to play with a little white kid, their son. And him and this white kid became like really good friends. But then as the white boy grew up into a white man, he embraced slavery, then began to look down on Frederick Douglass, his former best friend. And he said he realized that slavery had impacted not just Black people, but also corrupted his friend essentially at this point, and making him believe something, and it hurt all of them. Because imagine the economy we could build if we work together. Imagine the nation we could build. So the privilege isn't privilege; it's just ease. And it's just like, nah, man, we could be so much better with that kingdom mindset. But sin separates.
That's how you know there's a puppet master behind.
Man, look,
each end is a trap.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
each end is a trap. Like the Lord says, I'm good, and the plans I have for you are good.
Yeah.
And the enemy is the one that's like, hey, work to get yourself good, but in the end it's a trap. So you trapped and you trapped. So we know it's safe.
Man, listen, man.
So yeah, and so let's switch gears a little bit. You mentioned the Black Panther Party, and I was watching this documentary the other day on Huey P. Newton, just because I've always just been interested in that guy. Like, that's an interesting guy.
Yeah.
And so just kind of watching like how these guys articulated the pain in their community, and how these guys cared enough to organize, and not just organize frivolously, but organize, belief systems and uniforms and AKs, you know what I'm saying? And the reason, the number one reason that it started was because of police brutality and the way that their communities were being policed. And so what they would do, one part of the documentary that I watched, is what Huey Newton would do is he would walk at a distance with a rifle, and police the police. Like he would watch the police. And so he studied the laws. He knew he could watch them, he could film them, he could be a certain distance away, because he ultimately wanted to protect his people and his community. So I want to switch gears, and I want to talk about police brutality, police killings, and even this whole idea of police abolition, like to abolish the police or to defund the police. Like, I'm gonna be honest, like I'm kind of like looking at both ends, like, what do I want to do? Like, what do I want to do? Like, I don't want to advocate for something I don't believe in. You know what I mean? And so I want to. I'm reading up and studying, but there's a tension, and the tension is, how do we reconcile the biblical instruction to honor and obey those in authority, while at the same time so many Black and brown bodies are being abused and murdered by police? Like, what do we do with that tension with the police? So, like, talk to me about the police, brother. Talk to me.
All right. So first I have something for this. And It's a book called Politics in the Bible. I believe that's what it's called. And I've only read some stuff of it online, but I have this saved and I want to read from it real quick.
Okay.
Um, Political implications. All right, so it's talking about Romans 13, of course, where where we get, well, I think it's Romans 13, 1 through 7, where we get that obey the law.
Right.
So this is the this is the book, and then it's gonna quote another book, the Oxford Commentary on the Bible. So here we go. Paul strongly opposes active resistance to political authority, and even passive resistance is questionable. Consider American colonists who refused to pay the stamp tax in 1765, or Indians who participated in the Salt March led by Gandhi, or the African Americans who supported the Montgomery bus boycott led by Martin Luther King in 1955. Did these nonviolent actions violate Paul's injunctions to obey political authority? And what of violent political actions? Are we to condemn the Anglican leaders of who, along with William of Orange, overthrew James II in 1688? Are the American patriots who called upon nature's God to break American ties with Britain? Are the numerous men who attempted to assassinate Adolf Hitler? Especially in light of the atrocities committed after World War II, modern Christian scholars have reevaluated Romans 13. For example, and this is the Oxford Commentary. Few, if any, passages in the Pauline corpus have been more subject to abuse than verses 1 through 7 in Romans 13. Paul does not necessarily indicate that one is required to obey public officials in all circumstances, nor does he say that every exercise of civil authority is sanctioned by God. No particular government is authorized. No universal authority is legitimized. Instead, Paul reiterates the common Jewish view that human governance operates under God's superintendency. And the reason I really like that is for questions like this, but like I really like that because it's like, even you talked about earlier, those systems that have been built up to maintain sinful power and its reign, and fighting against that. It's not necessarily saying I'm not going to obey the law, or if a police officer pulls me over, I'm not going to say, yes, officer, here's my ID, and here's my insurance, and do all of those things that I'm instructed to do under Kansas City, Missouri law, etc. But it's taking another look and looking at it as, are these things harmful?
Yeah.
In a way that doesn't represent what they're supposed to be representing. And that's what I took from that. And it's like, talking about defund the police, when you're looking at it on the financial end of, because defund the police means a lot of different things, but looking at it on the financial police of actually defunding, taking money away from the city's budget or the state budget.
So that doesn't mean give the police department $0. What is defund the police? Yeah, let's
well, actually, defund the police is working towards a path towards abolition of the police, of the American policing system, and creating something new. Yeah, as we know it, as we know it, and creating something new that is not abusive to the people that it governs. So defunding the police, something simple as, instead of giving the police a military-sized budget, I mean, the NYPD has a bigger budget than North Korea military.
Wait.
Yeah, the NYPD has a bigger budget for the military than, I mean, for the police than North Korea's budget for military.
Now that's an issue.
Now you look at Kansas City's budget. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's probably 10 times more than what they give to education. So it's, when you're talking about people like, man, defund the police, I don't know about that, Sauce. You tripping, man. You I don't know. You gotta. We need somebody to enforce the laws. You gotta obey the laws, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, well, how about we give that 30 million to the education system, and let's see if we raise reading levels. We know that reading levels by the age of by the 3rd grade means more prison beds. And the police are the ones who lock people up and put them in prison. How about we eliminate that route by making sure that people can read, by having up-to-date books, by having tutors on hand, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, by eliminating poverty and things of that nature that lead to a need for policing, and in our communities, over policing. Even Mayor Quentin Mayor Quentin Lucas agrees. Our communities are over policed.
Yeah.
But why is that? I would definitely say, like, I agree with that book, Politics in the Bible, and I want to read much more of it, of course, because I find myself as I get older, a lot of things I agree with, but it's some stuff I don't agree with. So I, take what you can, leave the
Yeah.
rest,
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, I definitely agree, man. Like, it's not just do whatever it says, even if it's wrong, or even if it's going to hurt you. I think it's much more complex than that.
What is, real quick before we go to deep, what
No,
is
you good.
over police? Like, what is that? Like, you said our community is over police. Like, what does that mean? Give me examples.
Yeah. So you have the police officers who are responding to things or whatever. Then you have the I think this was encouraged by the broken windows policies. The police officers that's on the beat. He's
Yep.
out patrolling. Our communities are over patrolled. The police are called in for things that they shouldn't even need or have to respond to.
Yep.
That other qualified people can respond to take a control of the situation or to make the situation better, etc. And we have more police stations in our communities. The police that are serving our communities don't live in our communities. And I'm not an advocate for community policing either, because I think there's problems with that as well. But that's what I mean by over police. Like, they're building $30 million police stations on 30th and Prospect. They're bringing in police officers who probably don't even live next door to a black person or a brown person down around us. And like, it's compounded. So it's police represented on every area, on every block. They're setting up speed traps inside of neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Like, not just on the highway, but like you coming out of your neighborhood and police are trying to clock people. You know what I mean? So like, it's like, that's what I mean by like over police. Like, they overdo it. They're like, and it's this thing where like blackness is like criminality. So it's like, you have to have more police in those areas.
Yeah.
And for the most part, because of poverty, that could be very well so. I don't know, but because of those things, police are constantly in our communities, watching over us, riding past us, riding behind us, trying to see what's going on, trying to make something out of something, escalating situations that could be easily de-escalated by a healthcare worker or a psychologist or whatever. So that's what I meant by over policing.
That's good.
That's dope, man.
Wow, City of Truth. The conversation that we're having, or that's being had, is extremely necessary. I'm so grateful for these brothers taking the time out of their busy days away from their families to have this discussion with me and you virtually. I wanted to break this conversation up into two parts. The second part is going to play midweek, 7 p.m. It'll play Tuesday night, 7 p.m. So I want you to come back and hear the conclusion of this. It really gets good, man. We really get into the implications of the gospel as it relates to all of this. And you guys are really going to be encouraged by Sauce's story. A lot of you who know him and follow him, you saw that transformation, that transition from one thing to another thing. He talks about that turning point and how he struggled and wrestled even with his faith. And so I know that it's going to bless you. Listen, I want you to tune in this Tuesday night, 7 p.m. for the second part of Black Effect with Pastor AD3. All right, I'm getting ready to shift it to Lene and Trey. I'll see you guys soon. God bless.